The party's going on. Thank God it's Friday.
Now,
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Realm presented by ProFootballDebate.com. I am Adam and I am joined by BPappy. It's another Friday night without Al Suchi. He apparently got scared about having a chug tonight, so he went to bed early or something. He got his blankie, put on his onesies with his footies. It's tuckered in between his pillows, sleeping right now. So
It
we're gonna
it
have
may
to
take it may take me 10 seconds to chug, but at least I did it.
to do it. So we're gonna have to come up with a penalty for Al Suchi bitching out on his chug. Let us know in the comments or some ideas that we can do. Do we deduct points from his draft? Do we make him chug 2 beers? Does he have to chase a beer with a shot of whiskey or tequila? Or do we just kick him off the podcast for being a bitch? We're not really supposed to have any bitches on this podcast. So let us know what you guys think about that. So with that said, we're going to try not to disappoint you like Al Suchi has disappointed us and kick off with a Thursday night football recap. That was a coming out party for the Bears. I think everybody knows what to talk about. Justin Fields looks extremely comfortable and confident. DJ Moore finally blew up like a lot of people had predicted him to do. Washington, a lot of garbage points, not really much to take. That team looks like a mess. I'm scared to start any commander right now in that offense, even Robinson, McLaurin, or anybody. I'm shocked that McLaurin got shut down like he did. As far as Fields and McLaurin, or Fields and Moore, in my opinion, let's not get too excited. They've had 2 great weeks back to back against 2 terrible defenses. They've showed they have a pulse, and there's definitely room for hope there. But let's not anoint them as QB1 and wide receiver ones just yet. That's my opinion. What do you think about it, Brandon?
It's interesting. Like you said, they've had 2 good weeks. I think obvious answer is if you have Bears players, you're focused on Fields and DJ Moore, maybe Cole Kmet. But outside of that, Khalil Hibbert rushed pretty good in the game, but didn't score touchdowns. I mean, he got you 7 points last night, but nothing crazy out of him. It was mostly DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. And, the Commanders, I was shocked. I thought they had a better defense and would shut those guys down. But I think this goes to show one thing you see, we talk about fantasy versus regular football. Fantasy, it doesn't matter how good the team or good or bad the team is. These guys are NFL players. They're going to go out and compete. You see it with teams like the Cardinals. You see it with the Bears last night. These are not situations where you just sit a guy. You got to look at matchups and the situations like that. You called it, I think, earlier in the week. You said Fields looks comfortable. He's going to come out, and the Commanders aren't really that great of a team going against, and look at the numbers that they put up. So it's something to pay attention to as you go forward. It's not just because they're a bad team, but they're going to have weeks too where they fail, because if those guys aren't going off, they're going to lose badly and not score. So pretty much you focus on the matchups in those situations and make sure you plug them in the right places.
I think my biggest take from that is both of those teams showed that they have some back end tight ends that you can use. Cole Kmet and Logan Thomas are some, we're getting into bye weeks now, and injuries are starting to mount up. Logan Thomas and Cole Kmet are definitely some guys that I'd feel very comfortable having to plug in as a bye week filler or my tight end too, out of those situations.
Logan Thomas has been huge for the Commanders. I mean, last night he put up 23 points, I think, 11 targets.
Yeah, 9 catches. He's Mr. Reliable. He's not sexy or flashy. Doesn't get the hype or anything like that. But the guy quietly puts up low end wide receiver or tight end 1 numbers. Last year he got hurt, so I think he kind of got forgotten about a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's enough about that game. I want to talk a little bit about, much like those 2 teams that have started off poorly, if your fantasy team has started off poorly, you're 1-3, you're 0-4, what to do from here. Now, in a dynasty, completely different mindset. But in a redraft league, obviously you can't sell your aging players, declining assets for picks in the future. But you don't want to give up. It's way too early in the season. It's only been a month, so I have a lot of time left. You can make a push. Fantasy football is weird like that, So what do you do? Um, you have to make trades. You have to be active on the trade wire. You have to hawk the waiver wire every week. You need to be the most active and looking at that waiver wire, putting in your waiver wire priority early, however it is, your free agent dollars. Be crafty with it. Hit the waiver wire hard. And take your top asset or two, and you have to transition down. So, if you have Tyreek Hill, transition down to another receiver. If you have Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes, transition down to another quarterback and get a plus somewhere else. You're going to have to make some moves, and you're going to have to pay attention to the schedule and who's coming up and some underperformers. Some underperformers that I will bring out that I think are good targets to get as a plus when you transition down from a position is Aaron Jones. He had a decent week 1, got hurt, came back against Detroit. Detroit's had a pretty good run defense so far. So you might have an Aaron Jones owner that's really souring on him, and you can get him for a pretty good price right now. And the Green Bay Packers have the Bears coming up. They play the Vikings. I think they play the Broncos maybe. Those are 2 pretty poor defenses, or 3 pretty poor defenses they can take advantage of. Any Packer, I would take, Dobbs probably isn't too cheap right now, but Christian Watson, he hasn't really shown anything. Somebody might be impatient with him, knock on the door. You got nothing to lose. You're 1-3, 0-4. Breece Hall, it might be too late by the time this gets released to make a move for him. But owners might be impatient with him. He's splitting carries with Dalvin Cook, bad offense. I think in a matter of time, it's going to be Breece Hall's backfield. He's averaging almost twice the yards per carry, I think, is Dalvin Cook. Jets are getting desperate. They're going to have to ride their stud. Jameson Williams, he may be on the waiver wire in some. He's somebody I would trade for. Again, I'm just going all out. I'm going for my high upside guys here. They may not work out, but Jameson Williams has super high potential to be very, very lean, and he could just flame out. But he's a guy, if I'm looking for a hump and for an extra push, if I can get Jameson Williams as a plus to transition down, I'm absolutely doing it. The last guy I'll bring up is Zay Flowers. I think he's got a pretty nice schedule coming up. He's got Arizona and Detroit. Detroit's been locking down wide receiver 1s, but wide receiver 2s and 3s have been having pretty decent days against Detroit, playing up against Jerry Jacobs. And Zay Flowers was targeted early and often to start the season. He's had a kind of let down the last 2 weeks, so there might be owners might be a little bit lower on him, and you might be able to scoop him up and ride him out. But definitely hit that waiver wire, look for trades, be active. Just take what you can do. You got to mix your team up. And we got to remember your goal isn't to make the play, isn't to win the championship at this point. All you have to do is play the matchups till you get to the playoffs. So, if you got a team that's sitting 4-0 or 3-1, use the guys with the good schedule for the fantasy playoffs and pivot that into guys with good regular season schedules, so you can get there. And once you make the playoffs, it's any given week. Crazy things happen. Usually the best team does not win. All you have to do is make it, and you got a chance. So that's what I would do if you're 1-3, 0-4 in a redraft league. I don't know how your opinions on any of those, Brandon. But
yeah, agreed with what you're saying. I think look at depth that teams have that have started off well. Obviously they're going to have a bunch of guys that are scoring high, and they're going to probably be riding those guys. They might have a Zay Flowers or a rookie guy that, putting up points, but not breaking out any crazy point weeks, and you could steal them away because they've got guys, that are double scoring him.
Gotta go for the league win guys that could be possibly league winners, really low value, and you have to mix it up. If it backfires, you're already fucked, dude. You're 0-4. You're already fucked.
Let me ask you,
blowing up. So.
Like a guy you had a guy like Joe Burrow on your team, or are you targeting a guy like Joe Burrow if you have
You're not,
I don't know.
nobody's getting any. Nobody's going to get anything for Joe Burrow if you're trying to trade him right now.
Would you go after him though?
I will. I'm not gonna. He's a little bit low because I think he's injured. But if that's the play you got to do it. And like I tell anybody that really asks me questions, and I say, go with your gut. If your gut's giving you a strong feeling about a starter or sit or a player to acquire, if your gut is telling you, yeah, do it. Like you'll have a much harder time accepting the fact you listened to me or you and it failed versus if you went with your gut and you got it right. Like if you listen to me and I get it wrong, you're pissed at me. If you go against my word, and you get it wrong, then it's on you. It's easier to swallow. So yeah.
One other thing too I'd say is it's also not, it is still early, so not to panic. I think it's important to look at the standings because, depending on your league, right, you could have one team that started off and is 3-0 and then a bunch of teams that are 1-3 or 2-2. And you might be at the top of those teams because you have points, but pay attention to that side too before you panic and start trying to trade.
If you're 0-4, you can probably lose 2 more games, maybe 3, right? So you pretty much you gotta start turning it around, and I would mix it up is what I would do. Plus, it's fun to trade if you're in a good group of people. It's fun to trade. So
trades are fun.
Yeah, trading is fun. It's fun to just act like you're important, but really you're just a nerd that plays fantasy football. And then one day you might be a super nerd and do a fantasy football podcast or something.
Fair.
So let's get into again. You have to do the Saturday 6-pack by yourself because ale sucks. So you ready for it?
Let's go.
All right. So what I'm going to do is I updated the format a little bit, and what'll be a little fun exercise, especially if it's just one-on-one, is we'll do who you didn't take versus who you did take. We'll compare their numbers and see if you beat the guys you sat.
Yeah.
Right. So I did a QB, running back, wide receiver, tight end. All right. So at quarterback, I have the rookie phenom Anthony Richardson or the veteran Kirk Cousins. Anthony Richardson plays against the Titans, and Kirk Cousins plays against the Chiefs.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Anthony Richardson on that one. He scares me. Obviously, I've mentioned that the way he plays, he could exit early, and I think that's always a possibility. But the Titans do not have a great pass defense. They did play better last week, but they're at home. The Colts, they do get Jonathan Taylor back. I'm interested to see if he's actually going to play and how much of a role he has in the offense. He could just end up being a decoy, and that helps Anthony Richardson. I think the Chiefs actually have a pretty good defense, and they've shown it obviously in games. So they're a championship caliber team, and that's not going to be this. I don't think it's going to be a crazy shootout. The Vikings have actually not looked all that great offensively in their win last week, and in a couple matchups that I thought would be complete shootouts with the Chargers, and I'm leaning Anthony Richardson on that one.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree necessarily at all, actually.
I do like he can get you the 6 points. Well, again, depends on your scoring. 6 points for a rushing, 4 points for a passing TD standard. So
yeah, I agree. I would go Richardson too. So the next one at running back, I have Derrick Henry versus the Colts or Kieran Williams against the Eagles.
So I was actually Williams is banged up and he's questionable right now. He was limited in practice, so I'm going Derrick Henry. I think Williams will still play, but going up against the Eagles, I think they're gonna have to pass.
I pretty much put questionable tags as you're playing these days.
Yeah, it seems that way. I agree. I think he will play. I think a lot of times they play that up too to try to get teams, maybe thinking that they're out. But I like Derrick Henry. his usage has been weird this year. With Tajay Spears, and it's really game script dependent on what he does, but he's just good. I can't go without him. Plus, I have him on a team, so I need him to come through this week for me. I'll go Derrick Henry.
So my next one I have here is DeAndre Swift versus the Rams, or Joe Mixon versus the Cardinals.
I'm gonna go Joe Mixon. Cardinals have been good, but not good against the run. Yeah, Joe Mixon for sure for me on that one.
All right. The next one, this one was really written to be directed to Al, but he's, like I said, he's got his teddy tucked tight to his waist and right now.
Puka or Jameson?
Close. Jameson Williams versus the Panthers with likely no Amon-Ra, or Jerry Jeudy against the tough and stingy New York Jets defense.
Yeah. So originally I was against Jameson. I didn't think he was going to have much of a role coming back. I would go Jameson just because I think his ceiling is insane with Amon-Ra not in the lineup, and potentially Gibbs being out too. So I'm not confident that he is up to speed on everything. You know, he wasn't allowed to practice those 4 weeks he was out. I'm sure he did, on his own, but with the team and running the offense and things like that. So I start him with caution, but I think you have to with that ceiling out there with Amon-Ra out. He's gonna have to play a vital role, or it's gonna be the Josh Reynolds and Laporta show, is what I thought too. So, but yeah, I would start James. I don't like anybody going up against the Jets defense. Even though they're not a great offensive team, they still are a very strong defensive team. So
they are. All right, next up for the wide receiver 2 position, I have Adam Thielen versus the Lions and Cam Sutton, or Michael Pittman against I forgot already. Colts are playing
Titans. Yeah, Titans. Yeah, if I'm going Anthony Richardson, I gotta go Pittman there. He had an off week last week. I don't think it's gonna be the norm for him, so I think I look for him to bounce back. Again, Jonathan Taylor potentially coming back, I think does some things to that offense. Richardson doesn't pass a ton. He's going to do things with his legs, but Pittman still found ways to get open and connect with him in the early weeks before he got hurt. So I do like Pittman in that matchup. I don't like Thielen going up against Cam Sutton's been pretty good. So
yeah, he's been. They have locked down wide receiver 1s for the most part, and the wide receiver 2s have ate really well against Detroit. So,
and I think the pass rush is going to put pressure on Bryce Young. Now,
yeah,
the Lions aren't great against running quarterbacks traditionally, so we'll see if they've improved that with the culture that they've instituted. But yeah, I don't like Bryce Young.
No. Yeah. So, all right. Yeah, I agree with that one. I think the only one I've disagreed with you on I probably would play DeAndre Swift over Mixon. But other than that, I think I'm right on board with you. Tight end. Put this one together a little bit late. So I don't know the research, how close their points are. But I don't like either one of them. So I got Dallas Goedert versus, or for the Eagles, and gosh, I already forgot who they play again. The Rams. Yeah. And then I have Kyle Pitts against the Texans.
I don't like either one of those. I think those are going to be two that are pretty close to the same in scoring. I guess I'd have to lean Goddard.
Yeah, you take the guy with the higher powered offense, or the guy that's been getting the most offense.
And Pitts's snap count has been falling pretty Jono Smith or how do you say his name? He went off last week. He had 2 TDs, and they split pretty much the snaps. But Pitts was down below 50% of the snap count at tight end, so I can't start him with confidence. I'm dropping him and sitting him, so I have to go Goddard because of that. But
what an absolute misuse of potential matchup nightmare talent.
Yep.
And they took him 4th overall. It's just fantasy owners, especially dynasty owners, Kyle Pitts. And if you're in a tight end premium league for dynasty, Kyle Pitts was going in 2nd or 3rd or 4th overall in your rookie drafts, and you've gotten absolutely nothing out of him. He's been absolute terrible for fantasy owners.
Yeah, and I don't know. I obviously I heard all the hype when he came out and everything, but I don't know how his blocking is compared to Jono Smith. Okay,
he's a complete tight end. He really is good. He's just, the thing is, he's a wide receiver. Like they don't use him. It's just a head scratcher of a draft pick to waste that type of draft capital on somebody you're not going to utilize his strengths at.
Yeah, are they? I mean, I guess I can't say I've watched a ton of their games. I don't know if they're running a lot more 2 tight end sets, and that's why Jono Smith pops off, because of course Pitts is going to get the attention, and they're focusing on the backfield with Bijan. So
yeah, that's dead to me. And that was London game. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't know. That one I couldn't start Pitts in confidence based on what's been going on there.
So before we get into your Al, he likes to do his start and sits, and I know you prepared something for guys you like to start or sit. I just want to touch base on the news today that Chase Claypool has been traded to the Dolphins. Are you picking him up? You interested in him at all?
I think it is an interesting fantasy dynamic because that offense is so strong. I just don't know. I honestly, when I first saw it, my first kind of response to it was, were they just and I think I read something about it too, were they just doing it to block other teams from getting? I think they were talking about the Chiefs potentially. Did they just do that to block the Chiefs from picking up Claypool? Braxton Berrios, I think. So it was I forget the other guy's name that was there. White dude.
River Crocraft or whatever.
Yeah, he got hurt, and so last week Berrios came in and actually had a pretty good game against the Bills in that 3rd receiver spot. So it's against better defenses. I think he could be a potential fantasy start. Someone with high upside in that offense. But these trades, and you saw it with like Cam Akers coming into Minnesota and different things. They gotta get warmed up to the systems and the offenses and connect with the team. And I think just the week of, or he didn't even practice with them. I don't think, right? It was had that trade happen today, so he might get one walkthrough with them, but I don't think he's going to be ready to go this week. Long term for the season, he might be a good, for those 1 and 3 teams that are looking for a potential wide receiver, he could be a good pickup if you didn't already have him. I would imagine his usage is pretty low, or rostered, numbers are pretty low, seeing that he was on a crap team and wasn't even playing with the Bears. So, yeah, he could be a good stash and see where it goes type of play in that situation, because that offense is going to score points for you. So you see it with A-Chain and Mostert, and then obviously they have Waddle, who hasn't done too much this year so far, but Tyreek Hill, they're gonna be gunslingers. So
yeah, I think they maybe just got him for a tall red zone threat. They really don't have a tall wide receiver or tight end, since they got rid of Gesicki, who they never even used.
Yeah,
I just thought that he was just a red zone option there. And that in a shallow league like redraft leagues are, you probably don't have the roster space for him. But
yep.
I mean, I always hate him because he's got all the talent in the world.
I think if you're in a deep league, you grab him. Anything over 12 teams, you're probably, it would be a smart idea to pick him up. But other than that,
I'm paying attention to him for sure.
He's a good receiver. I mean, it wasn't gonna happen in Chicago, so landed in a good spot.
He's a giant turd. He's a terrible attitude. I kind of
Yeah.
feel like he's gonna work his way out of Miami, but
Probably.
The upside. Fantasy football is all about potential and the upside, and the upside's there. So if I have the roster spot, I'll drop somebody for him, but I'm not taking any. I'm not dropping Michael Wilson from the Cardinals for him, or
No.
I'm not dropping Zay Flowers especially for him, or I may drop Brandon Cooks for him. Would you drop Brandon Cooks for Chase Claypool?
Yeah, and I'm a little bit biased because I had Brandon Cooks for 2 years prior these last 2 years, and he crapped the bed for me. So he hasn't done much in Dallas. I thought he would do a lot more. So yeah, I would drop him.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's dive into your be Al's daddy and take over his segment for him.
Yeah, I won't call mine must starts, must sits because I'm focused more on the matchups, but definitely some to target. I'll just start and run through them, and if you want to give any feedback, happy to hear it as well. But first one is QB Josh Allen. I think he does have QB1 overall potential this week, going up against the Jags. It is the international game, but that offense started to click last week. I think the Miami game is a big confidence builder coming in, and the Jags just haven't looked great. So they're on a mission.
I have Josh Allen. I'm starting him every week. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, I think his matchup is especially juicy this week. But yeah, that's a no-brainer, I guess. So we won't count that one. But yeah. So same game, next one. Travis Etienne. Buffalo's rush defense is just not that good. They're allowing the second highest explosive run rate, highest yards after contact per attempt, and they've also managed to have the 12th lowest stuff rate and given up the second highest yards per carry to zone runs. And Etienne is a zone runner, so I think he's going to have a good game as well. Plus, Jaguars are in London again, and they kind of are second home there. So
yeah, it is.
So yeah, I think he's a start. Stephon Diggs, same game as well. Kind of goes along with the Josh Allen, but I think he was kind of due for that big game. You called it last week. He was due for that. So it is a little bit game script dependent on if he pops off huge this week. It's related to blitzing, so his target shares jump up quite a bit to 34.6%, and first read share hops up to almost 50%. It's at 44%.
Right.
So to match up, obviously specific in game script, but if that happens, he's going to go off, and so that's a big start for me. But I know you love Diggs.
I'm starting Josh Allen's and Stephon Diggs every single week because despite the matchup, you never know when those guys are going to go off. Diggs going to get 10 for 150 and 2 touchdowns against the best defense. It all depends on how that game flow goes. So another one, I'm always starting Stephon Diggs. I drafted him to be a stud, and I'm playing him no matter what, just like Jamar Chase, just like Justin Jefferson, just like Tyreek Hill. I don't give a shit the matchup. But that's probably better advice for like a daily fantasy. Go ahead and spend your money on Stephon
on him.
Diggs, spend your money on Josh Allen. Like those guys are going to be worth it this week.
Yep. Next one is a conversation we've been having, and I think someone actually had the question and on the Facebook page last week about the Houston receivers and Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Robert Woods. And this week, I would be targeting Robert Woods strictly because of matchup. He's drawing the best corner matchup this week against Atlanta. He's going to run about half of his routes against D. Elford, who has a 77.3% catch rate and 125.8 passer rating against him. So Definitely a very good matchup. CJ Stroud loves to throw the ball, and Woods could be his target this week. Okuda is the one who's going to be matching up against Tank Dell and Nico Collins. So that's obviously we're familiar with Okuda.
And they have a good secondary. I like that stat because I'm forced to start Robert Woods in my 14 team league dynasty league this week. So
yeah,
I like that. But that Texans receiving core is a hard one to predict. I don't think he pays attention to us, but I work with a guy named Ben Anderson, and he asked me last week, Zay Flowers or Nico Collins, and I was like, dude, like I'd go Zay. And he's like, well, I want to start Nico. And I told him, I said, if that's what your gut says, then do it. But
yep.
But Nico Collins, I feel like he's becoming second fiddle to Tank, and then Zay, they're scripting plays for specifically. And then last week happened, and Nico was a stud, and Zay was a dud, and I feel uncomfortable giving advice about the Houston Texans wide receiver core, which one's going to go off, because CJ Stroud has shown that he's not going to focus on a wide receiver. He's going to focus on what the defense is giving him. So it's a hard fantasy prediction to predict. But we, being a fantasy football podcaster and website, we have to answer those questions.
Yeah.
So, I feel like it's a total crapshoot on which one's going to go off each week.
Totally agree.
That's good stats. That's good statistics to put out for Bobby Trees.
Yeah, and last week I was paying attention to this in a couple of the matchups. The only one that it didn't happen with was 2-2, but when these corner matchups are out there and that information is there, they tend to hit more than they don't. So it is an interesting. I like looking at the passer rating. The catch rate too is huge, because even if he doesn't get a ton of targets, he hopefully catches majority of them, right? So that like you said though, that is a very difficult grouping to determine who's going to stand out week to week.
Yeah, I mean, if you have those numbers that you had, I'm sure. I mean, if you hit this and Robert Woods is a wide receiver 1 in Texans this week, I think that your data is going to go a long way to being.
Yeah, we'll see.
As a model to follow, right? I mean,
yep.
If Bobby Trees has 1 catch, 3 yards, we're going to say Brandon's a fucking idiot.
Yeah. You'll say that anyways, but
that's true. That's true.
Next guy I think has worked his way really into the discussion for a must start every week, but I think this week with some of the injuries in the lineup, key injuries in the lineup, is gonna make him have a big week. But David Montgomery, obviously we love him as Lions fans. He's come into his own here and picked up a lot of the goal line carries. Gibbs is questionable. Amon-Ra's out. I look at the Lions to try to wear down that Carolina defense, which is not a bad defense altogether. But I think he steps up and has a big game. They're going to obviously use him. He might have more of a role in the passing game if Gibbs is out too, so it could get some receptions and things like that. I think along those same lines, we love him as well, and we talked about him being a must start, but Laporta as well in that situation. I think he's going to have a big game. So those two, just because Laporta is going to be in the game and see snaps, maybe increase a little bit if they're going to be running a lot. And I like that those two to stand out this week.
Carolina's been very tough against tight ends, so I'm a little nervous about the Laporta matchup. I'm still starting him, but I'm nervous about it. I kind of look to Josh Reynolds or Khalif Raymond to have a bigger game than normal in that matchup. And as far as
Jameson, so who knows?
Yeah, who knows? You're right. It's a question, but the consistent has been David Montgomery. I've been a David Montgomery truther since he came out of Iowa State. I've had to argue with people that he's better than the Chicago, and he's just been stuck in Chicago. And then this offseason, I mean, he went to Detroit. I'm just sending offers out all over the place for him. I want David Montgomery. I'm like, man, I can get this guy in the 8th round in a redraft. I'm hammering him. Like, me and you argued about him offseason, and I was right.
You were.
But he is he's got elite level of running abilities. Like the way he hits the hole, he squares his shoulders up. He takes half of a man so that he puts himself in a position to always win contact. So that he can hit the linebacker and he's going to put his body and square his shoulders up to be able to fall forward for another yard and a half. And he does it consistently. I mean, 90% of the time he falls forward for an extra yard. In Detroit offensive line and him, it's a perfect marriage. He's still underrated.
Yeah.
The fact that people ask questions, do I start David Montgomery this week? Yes, absolutely. You put him up there, you're going to have, when healthy, Austin Eckler, Christian McCaffrey, Saquon Barkley, and now that Chubb's hurt, David Montgomery is in that top 5 running back territory for a fantasy running back, especially when they start utilizing his wide receiver skills, because he is a very capable receiver out of the backfield. And Detroit hasn't really utilized it. They've had Gibbs they're trying to get the ball to, and they use Laporta, and all rightfully so. But if defenses forget that David Montgomery is a weapon out of the backfield, he's got very capable hands. That's even going to elevate his fantasy stock and what he can do.
Well, and
I think he's still
the big question was coming in the season was, how much of a role was Gibbs going to have and how much role is Monty going to have, and I think that's been answered, right? It's clear as day. David Montgomery has every legitimate shot, as long as he stays healthy, to destroy Jamal Williams and Barry Sanders' touchdown record. Like, he's off to a great start. I think he's just kind of, you said it, he was going to fill the Jamal role and essentially do the same thing and do it better, and he has been. So I don't think you can sit him with the fact that he's going to get the goal line carries. He's going to get you 1 touchdown a week, if not 2, from what it's looked like every week. And that offense has done well in the red zone. They're going to go for it on 4th down most of the time. They're going to be pressing, so he's a must start.
He's an RB1. I can't name 11 other running backs I'm more confident in. I can name 3, and I named them already. And maybe Kenneth Walker, right?
And he missed a week, right?
Yeah.
He missed a week, and he's still, I think he's in the top 5 for running back. So that was with missing a week. So,
yeah.
Don't quote me on that because I don't have him in front of me, but I'm pretty sure he is. But yeah, that's my homer play, even though I think it's a real thing now. But yeah, so moving on, next one, I have just a couple more for guys I would target, but Tyler Higbee is another at tight end, going up against Philly. Philly's bad against tight ends. They allow the 6th most receiving yards, 3rd most fantasy points, and 9th highest yards per reception to tight ends. Obviously, we know Philly is a good offensive team. They're going to score points, so I think the Rams are going to have to keep up with them. Look for Higbee to jump out. He's been playing pretty well. Matt Stafford's obviously going to throw the ball, and if Kyren Williams is out, I think they're going to go to passing, and they get Cooper Kupp back this week. So I'm not loving the Puka side of things. I still think he's going to get catches. Tutu, like you said, probably falls off. That'll be interesting to see. I am excited to kind of see that play out. Wonder how healthy Kupp is and how ready to go he is. But I think Higbee's going to come in, might get a touchdown, and probably grab 5 catches, 60 yards or so. Have a good week for a tight end. So
yeah, he's right up there with that Logan Thomas comp we talked about earlier. The guy that is severely underrated. I mean, 7, 5, 11. Those are his targets last 3 weeks. He's not sexy. He's not going to make that big splash play. But the guy is, Stafford likes him. Stafford trusts him. I like that one a lot.
Another guy I know you like, running back for the Cardinals, James Conner. He should have a big, if we're going off of numbers and on paper, he's poised to have a pretty big day against the Bengals run defense. They're allowing the 3rd highest explosive run rate, 2nd highest missed tackles per attempt, and 7th highest yards after contact contact per attempt. So he could jump out again. Another guy that I think, like, you keep using the term sexy. I think he just kind of gets the job done. Cardinals aren't a great team. People, aren't paying attention to a bunch of the Cardinals, but that offense has been playing well. They've been being competitive in games, and it's large in part due to him in the backfield. So look at him to have a pretty good week against the Bengals.
Yeah, he's been a workhorse, and another guy I like, and I'm starting him over Joe Burrow this week is Josh Dobbs.
Yep.
Uh, in our wrestling there, our Devy salary cap league, I sold him for a 4th round Devy pick, and I sold way too low on him because it's a 2-quarterback league. I'm shocked. He's got a 70% completion percentage. He's got almost 100 QB rating. I don't know. I mean, I'm riding him out until he falls off.
Yep. You have to. I mean, he's one of those quarterbacks who just stepped in and started putting up points. It's like, where'd he come from?
It's week 5. These anomalies are starting to become real things, right? Like last year with Geno Smith, it's like, how long do you not trust Geno Smith? And he was reliable the whole year. So Josh Dobbs could be this year's Geno Smith.
Very true.
So
last one for guys I'm targeting for must starts. Another, you've talked about him, Breece Hall. The Jets, I forget, I had it written down. Who are they playing again? Broncos, yeah.
Dude.
So yeah, I feel like you have to start. It's been a no-brainer against the Broncos. I mean, the Bears, even Khalil Herbert ran good against him. So this is he's due for a big game, and that offense is due for a breakout. And I think this is a good opportunity for that to happen. He's Denver's just not a good team, so he should have a good week. So that's my must starts.
I agree. I like the Breece Hall one. I think they're gonna start feeding him more. Like I mentioned earlier, I think he's got twice the yards per carry that Dalvin Cook does. So they're gonna have to start transitioning to Breece Hall. Like, they made a move, and they think they still have Super Bowl aspirations in New York, to where I think Aaron Rodgers is gonna come back in time for the playoffs to lead them to the Super Bowl. And so they're going to need to start riding their studs. They're going to have to, their offensive coordinators going to have to get creative and figure out ways that, and it looked good last week against the Chiefs. Zach Wilson got the ball out super quick. I mean, he got the ball out on average of like 2 seconds, and just, hey, no thoughts. Just here it is. Boom, 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 go. Get the ball to Garrett Wilson. He got a ton of targets. I think he got 9 catches, and then they're going to start having to ride Breece Hall. So you can't be cute with Dalvin Cook. Don't be cute with Randall Cobb or Allan Lazard. Those guys are not the talents like Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson are. They're going to have to start finding a way to get them the ball. It's time for those coaches to earn their money. So I like that a lot.
Yeah, and he's a guy that probably in daily fantasy is, I don't pay a ton of attention to daily in their salary caps, but I would have to imagine he's on the lower end in the salary cap. The matchup probably boosts it, and he probably goes up because they're playing the Broncos, but he could be a good guy and a value play for a daily. So, and then I'll just run through a couple of my sits so we can wrap it up. T-Law this week has a tough matchup against the Bills. He hasn't looked great either. I think he's like QB 22 or something like that. So he's not playing well. The Bills just have held quarterbacks the second lowest passer rating, third fewest touchdown passes, and fewest fantasy points per game. So this could be a week you want to sit him. It's just a tough matchup. Plus they're in London. So I think they've been there though. They were there last week, weren't they? Against the Falcons. So they're still there. I don't know if that affects him, but yeah, I think he's a sit for me.
Jags.
Yeah, but I just don't think they're going to do anything passing wise. That's why I think Etienne is the play there for that game for the Jags. Tyler Algier is my second one. His usage has trended down significantly since week 1 when it was shared with Bijan. Last week, it fell all the way down to 26% of snaps. So they've shown that Bijan's going to be the guy. He's becoming almost the every down back. And I think that's just because of his playmaking ability, right? Whether he's running the ball or catching the ball. So I'm sitting him this week along with like Pitts, and I'd ride Bijan if you have that decision to make between Algier or Bijan. But if you have just Algier, I'm playing somebody else.
Yep, I agree.
Joe Burrow, my other, I still don't know the extent of his injury and where he's at. But I'm saying at this point I have to sit him until he starts showing me something. You could start him, but I'd start him with caution. But you mentioned, you're starting Dobbs over him. I think there's probably some waiver wire quarterbacks that you can plug in over him right now until he starts actually producing. And we talked about that.
Practiced with no limitations, but I need to see it at this point.
Yeah,
he's been bad.
Yeah, I mean their offense has scored like 3 points a week. Like, it's been just god awful. So
yeah, it's been bad.
Another one I'm sitting in. I think folks, obviously, like we talked about with Monty being the guy in Detroit, is Gibbs. I think folks love Gibbs because of his past potential, but he's nursing an injury right now, and questionable and possible that he doesn't play from what it sounds like. So I'd have to think that the Lions are kind of game planning around that, and the absence of Amon-Ra means that they're going to go Monty, I think, and I would be sitting Gibbs this week. So I have him on one of my teams, and he's scoring points, but he's just not putting. There's other guys that I can start in place of him that are going to do the same, if not put up more every week. So at this point, I got to sit him.
Yeah, that's people needed to hear that.
Yeah, it's a tough call, especially as a Lions fan. I love him, and I think he's going to be a stud here eventually when they figure out how to use him properly. But his usage has been so sporadic.
What I read was that Ben Johnson was talking, and he said that he's surprised at how much attention he's getting from other defenses, and they didn't necessarily plan on that. So that's been opening up opportunities for other people, because the play he talked about specifically was the reason that the reverse to Khalif Raymond worked so well last week was because of all the attention that Jahmyr Gibbs was getting from Green Bay. So they were biting and over pursuing on Gibbs the whole night. So they called that reverse play, and they threw Gibbs this way. So he brought the whole defense with him, and that's what opened up the running lane for Raymond. So, I mean, that's kudos to Ben Johnson for not forcing the ball to Gibbs and utilizing defenses. And that's what good OCs are going to do. They're going to figure out what the defense is doing and make that not work for them. So eventually they're going to have to start paying attention to some of the other guys, right? But
yep. Yeah, but until it balances out to where he starts being a little bit more consistent, I gotta put him on the bench and put someone else in. So
I agree. He's not worth starting anymore.
The last one is obviously he was the hot waiver wire pickup of the week, and it was Jaleel McLaughlin. He was in for Javonte, who went out, but Javonte sounds like he's coming back and practiced, and he's got that questionable tag that I think, like we said, has kind of been there, and guys are still coming out and playing. So unless you see the doubtful tag or some more news breaks that he's going to be out, I think McLaughlin's actually a sit. It's one of those kind of situations where he looked fantastic, and then it makes you wonder, are the Broncos going to go? Do they think that helps the offense and changes it up at all? But they're going up against the Jets, so even if he is the main back in that game, I don't like the matchup. I think the Jets are just, again, not a great offensive team, but they're gonna win games 6-3, 10-6. Like, they're gonna win those games as the year progresses, and the defense, it shows what they're capable of and has to do to win games. So I don't like that matchup, and I think people overreacted on the injury situation. And again, you're gonna pick him up on the waiver wire because he had a great game. That's gonna do that, but I don't think he's worthy of a start this week. So
yeah, I'm not interested in him at all. He's a little dude, and yeah, he's gonna make some good plays here and there. I just think he's gonna probably be a better NFL gadget guy than he is a fantasy football player. And maybe you strike gold and you fucking start him and you get lucky. But
yeah,
start him 3 weeks, and one of those 3 weeks he'll be worth the start. So I'm not. Yeah, I 100% agree. I'm not starting him at all. I'm not even wasting a roster spot on him, to be truthful to you. But
yeah. Well, I like this better. Allan wasn't here to disagree with everything, so
yeah, I mean, let guys that are watching, let us know, how disappointed are you with Allan? How much better is it without him? What should he do to make up for him not chugging? Truthfully, how can we have these drafts and say, oh, the loser has to chug, and then Al just, on Monday he doesn't have anything to chug conveniently. He knew he lost early Sunday. He could have gone to the store and got something
and still talk shit that he did about my 10-second chug. So
yeah, and then he had all week, and the WNBA is not even playing tonight. So I don't even understand what he's doing. He just said his tummy felt yucky and he needed to nap. So he grabbed his teddy bear, cuddled up, and he's just sleeping. Holly's probably making him hot chocolate and rubbing his back, whatever she has to do to carry that relationship and household. So it's disappointing, There's only so much you can do, but
yeah. But we will have our draft. It'll be up tomorrow after we get it drafted. We have a guest drafter again. We'll post the teams and see what the results are.
If you want to be our next guest drafter for week 3, just comment, I want to be the next drafter, because then we'll know somebody actually watched this whole thing, and God bless you. And you're automatically it. If not, we're going to start trying to get some users involved, some people that pay attention to this. And then if you win, if you beat us, we're all chugging. And if you want to be on the podcast on that following day, we'll make a spot for you. You can come on and you can just flex your knowledge on us. So I think that'll be fun to get a bunch of people involved. And honestly, truth be told, we need a third person on these nights anyways, because Al doesn't make it. So basically,
yeah, maybe we can run I think like FanDuel or DraftKings allows you to run, we could even do a free one for fun. Set that up so people could just join in and
we should
draft the team and see what's up. So yeah, I'll look into it, see if I can get something created.
Yeah. So I think that's it for us tonight. Thank you guys for joining in and watching. We super appreciate your guys' fandom. And we'll post our starts and sits and your questions again on Sunday, and we'll try to answer them as timely as possible and as best as possible. I think I had a bad week last week, so I'm sorry to everybody, but please come back and keep asking. We appreciate the engagement, and we really truthfully do. And as always, please like and subscribe to our videos. I don't care if you just ignore the subscribe when you get them, but it really helps us get this thing going. So if you're watching this, you guys probably have a special connection to us, and we love you guys for that. But we're really trying to grow. So if you can give us that like and subscribe, that'd mean the world to us. And with all that said, good night, everybody. And we will catch you guys on Monday night.
Adios.
Peace out.